From the 1970s through about 2005, we saw consistent application of Moore's law. The number of transistors on a chip doubled about every 18 to 24 months. After a certain point, though, it became more difficult to cram more and more transistors onto the same size chip. We ran into physics issues regarding the size of transistors and the amount of heat produced. The result of this was the beginning of the multi-core era. One factor driving the increase in cores in our computing is the increase in overall global digital data that is being produced. The data that is shown on this slide is accurate up to about 2020, whereas the dotted lines on the left-hand side are projections of what we might expect transistors and clock speed, power, and the number of cores to approach after this graphic was made. During the 1970s and 1980s, one of the primary innovations in operating systems was the invention of the graphical user interface. In 1977, the Apple II computer came out, produced by Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak. If you don't remember who these people are, maybe check with Epic Rap Battles of History. I've heard they've got a great video on that subject. During the same time period, the Intel x86 instruction set architecture was also evolving. In 1978, we had the 8086, which was the first 16-bit processor, which was huge for the time. It was improved about 7 years later with the 386 model, which was the first 32-bit processor, which gave us the instruction set architecture 32. Compared to the 1960s and prior, the 1970s and 1980s brought about a revolution in the personal computer. Now, what you see on your screen at this point in time is a command line interface, which was the way that up until that point in 1981, everyone using a computer had to interact with that computer using the keyboard. The invention of the graphical user interface made personal computers easy for anyone to use, as long as they could see. Contributors to the graphical user interface's ease of access include Douglas Engelbart, who invented the mouse and won a Turing Award for it in 1997, and Ivan Sutherland, who's known as the father of computer graphics. He was awarded the Turing Award in 1988. 1983 gave us the Apple Lisa, which was one of the first personal computers that used a graphical user interface. 1985 saw Microsoft Windows 1.0 brought out, and then a new version again in 1990. The 1990s brought about new innovations in operating systems relating to networking and security, primarily because of the internet. While networking can date back to the 1950s, and there is an excellent video explaining the very first word to be sent across the wires by the person who did send words across the wires. The internet's rise to fame came in the 1990s with the dot-com bubble. The rise of the internet and networking becoming so prevalent in the lives of people with personal computers meant that operating systems had new concerns that arose regarding networking design, networking support, and security. During this time period, there were a couple of new innovations in chip manufacturing, specifically in terms of the logical design of computing. So first, the Intel Pentium 4, which came around in 2002, was the first personal computer to support hyperthreading. Its brethren, the Pentium 4F, which came out just 2 years later, was the first 64-bit personal computer processor from Intel, and it used an instruction set architecture referred to as x86-64. The first Intel multi-core machine was the Core i7, which was produced in 2008.